or it can be informal. And that is one area where skills development is huge in Africa. In actual fact, about 85% of all skills development practices take place in the informal sector, where girls, boys, women, men learn their trade as apprentices in the informal economy. So TVET cuts across. It can be formal, non-formal, or informal. It's important to understand this as we go ahead during this discussion. According to UNESCO, TVET is a comprehensive term referring to those aspects of the educational process involving, in addition to general education. It's important to remember this, in addition to general education, the study of technologies and related sciences, as well as the acquisition of practical skills, attitudes, understanding, and knowledge relating to occupations in various sectors of economic and social life. This is the standard definition of TVET. Now, if you look at this closely, you will realize that TVET is primarily about acquisition of employable skills for sustainable livelihoods in various sectors. It can be in agro-processing, it can be ICT, in manufacturing, what have you. It is therefore important that women and girls achieve equality of access and outcomes in TVET. Otherwise, their chances of getting employed will be reduced. There is less equality of employment opportunities if girls and women are not given equality in access and success in TVET. There's a full spectrum of TVET. I don't want to go through that. Most of you are perhaps familiar with the basic skills in carpentry, sewing, and so on. But TVET actually is delivered as the highest level in technical universities, in universities of technology, and so on. But that is a story for another day. Gender stereotyping in TVET is a very complex issue. And the reasons for this phenomenon are known. We all know it. Yesterday we talked about this. We gave all reasons and recommendations to change the situation. But not much has changed. So the question is why? One of the key reasons is that there has been very little impact evaluation of the policy recommendations. If you talk about the role of parents, for example, the role of instructors, or even affirmative actions in favor of girls, have we actually taken the trouble to find out how successful these measures are? This is particularly so because no single strategy is capable of changing age-old perceptions. Current policies, if you go through the literature, current policies are mainly policies that are well-intentioned. Everybody wants this to happen, but there are no benchmarks. There are no targets. There are no key performance indicators. For example, in Malawi, the policy is that you should have females taking up at least 30% of enrollments in TVET. In Lesotho, for example, the policy is let's go to 70%. South Africa, all skills development strategies target 54% women. But how successful have these policies been? Nobody has taken the trouble to analyze the performance of these measures. And what is even more perhaps striking is that these policies really are talking about improving participation of women in TVET, not necessarily in male-dominated occupations. But what is a male-dominated occupation? The definition from the U.S. Department of Labor is that any occupation that comprises 25% or fewer women may be considered as male-dominated. In the US, only 6.3% of women actually worked in male-dominated occupations in 2016. In Canada, women's share in construction is about 11.7%, mining, oil and gas, 20%, vehicle mechanics, only 0.3%. So when we talk about gender stereotyping, it's not just an African problem. It's a universal problem. It's a world problem. But in Africa, what are the facts? What do we see in Africa? I'm just taking a couple of institutions from Ghana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, so that we can get a feel of what the figures are, what the facts are on the ground. If you take the Accra Technical Training Center, it's a leading vocational school in Ghana, you can see the percentages on the right of your screen. Auto body repair, 0.9%. Motor vehicle engineering, 0. Welding and fabrication, 0. All along, you can see all of them up, down there to electrical engineering technology, 1%. If you look at a couple of polytechnics in Zimbabwe, at the tertiary level, in Ghana, we're talking about the pre-tertiary level. In Zimbabwe, the examples here refer to polytechnics at the tertiary or post-secondary level. Even here, the figures are not very encouraging for women, the share of women, from 5% down to 3.1% in the, if you like, the hardcore subjects. But when you go down to commerce and hospitality, the women really are there in their numbers. Another is Polytechnic, Mutare Polytechnic. You have the figures also showing that the traditional segregation of occupations is still there in a country like Zimbabwe. And yet, Zimbabwe has a gender policy, a national gender policy, which encourages equality of access and outcomes in education and training. So it's not enough to have a policy. In Nigeria, huge country, lots of people in polytechnics. There's an aggregation of numbers in all the polytechnics in Nigeria. You have the total enrollment for the programs, and then on the right, the percentage share of women. What is striking here is that at the tertiary level, you realize that percentages begin to increase. Looking back at the pre-tertiary level in Ghana, very small percentages. At the tertiary level, percentages of women in so-called masculine occupational areas begin to go up. Just to recapitulate, the share of girls and women enrolled in engineering trades range from a low of 0% to a high of only 2.4% at the pre-tertiary level. I'm using these three countries as representative of the situation in Africa. At the pre-tertiary level, for example, with reference to schools in Ghana, female participation rates are very low in male-dominated disciplines. The figures you can see on the screen. At the tertiary or polytechnic level, if you take the figures from Zimbabwe and Nigeria, for example, we have all these figures there, 5% and so on. But comparatively, you see women becoming more and more involved in subjects as mechatronics, computer engineering technology, and chemical engineering technology. But at the pre-tertiary level and at the tertiary level, the typical female occupations are still very strong. This is one fact I would like you to take along with you. The fact is that there's a significant increase in the proportion of girls and women in engineering and the sciences at the tertiary level. Female presence in such programs is as high as 18.6%, electrical engineering 21%, agric engineering, and so on. And a high of 66.9% in science laboratory technology with regard to biochemistry labs. So we see a significant increase at the tertiary level. The question is why? Why is this happening? It seems to me that the STEM factor cannot be ignored. You know, there are several factors that may explain the fact that more women enroll in engineering and so on. Yesterday we heard from speakers about the role that their parents played, their teachers played, and so on. But the STEM factor cannot be ignored. Because as girls become aware of STEM subjects, once they become more comfortable with STEM subjects, then the fear of studying STEM disappears. And as they move up the ladder, then they become aware of the wider array of career pathways that they are qualified to pursue at the tertiary level. So I'm using the word STEMitizing girls and boys from the basic education level, right from the basic education level, is a good idea. It may help in bridging the gap between males and females at the workplace. Now, it's not that easy because there are certain myths that are still very strong in Africa, and I think we need to try at this stage to begin to destroy these myths. The first one is that girls are naturally different to boys and learn differently. Now, research in this area is not yet conclusive. But what we know is that there is greater difference within sexes than across sexes. In other words, if we take a group of girls and you want to analyze their abilities, you will find greater differences in ability within that sex than if you compare their abilities from one sex to the other. So, although the evidence is still not conclusive, it is quite clear that this is a myth that perhaps will soon be discarded. The second one is that some occupations are too masculine for men. In actual fact, there's nothing masculine about vocations. You cannot talk about anything masculine about any vocation. TVET is about doing a practical task or performing a service. And men and women are equally capable of doing this. In fact, FAWE is the Forum of African Women Educationalists. FAWE undertook a study in a post-conflict country, in fact, two post-conflict countries, in Liberia and Sierra Leone. You know, in post-conflict countries, what is important is that we want people with skills to rebuild the country, building and construction, roads, and so on. So FAWE did a study on gender and TVET in these two countries. And we saw that there was a significant number of women and girls that enrolled in courses like auto mechanics, electrical installation, and so on, welding. Lots of them were enrolled. And they found jobs at the end of the training. There's nothing masculine about these jobs. But in traditional African societies, as we heard yesterday, girls are often under some psychological pressure to go and get married. That if you are in some hard, if you like, subject areas, then you may lose your femininity. You may no longer be very attractive to boys, and then you won't get married. But it's not true, as we saw yesterday. Very beautiful ladies here who have gone through engineering and are happily married. It's a myth that we need to really discard. The third one is that religious beliefs forbid women to practice some vocations. This is also not true. It is true that in some conservative societies, because of lack of knowledge, because of ignorance, these ideas may be perpetuated. But in a study that was carried out in Western Nigeria, 82.7% of the public surveyed said no, there's nothing that should prevent girls from studying technical and vocational subjects. There were at least some people who felt no, girls should not. 17% said that no, girls should not study certain technical and industrial subjects. But only 4.5% said religion and culture forbid girls from studying technical and vocational subjects, only 4.5%. So it is not rooted in any religious belief, actually. It's just perceptions and personal opinions. There are many more that eventually you can find in my paper. But what should be the strategies for retention and success of girls in TVET? Let's look at some of them. You see, because the problem is complex, we need a multi-dimensional approach to having a solution. And there are certain key dimensions of such a strategy, which I would like to just mention briefly. First of all, we need affirmative action policies that really commit government and stakeholders to making a change, to ensuring that more girls get into male-dominated occupations. We need to set and track and evaluate the performance of such policy measures. It's extremely important so that if they are not working, or if they're not working well, then you know what to do next. Gender-sensitive institutional leadership is important. As we heard yesterday, professors were able to influence the choice of masculine, so-called masculine courses. We need girl-friendly physical facilities and learning environments. Girls don't have to walk 2 kilometers to go to the toilet. The workshop must be fitted for both boys and girl washrooms and so on. We need to eliminate gender bias in curriculum delivery. Sometimes teachers are very guilty of this when they are giving examples of subject areas, of courses. They will say, oh, men will do that, girls will do that. We need to discourage that. We need to use role models and the media. It's extremely important, the media, to change stereotype perceptions. And of course, you need money. You don't just say, this is what I want to do, and the thing will get done by itself. You need money, gender budgeting, so that you can finance, institutions can finance and mainstream gender into their activities. Another key issue is that don't just get anybody to be trained. Find out if that training will lead to employment. If girls know that once they get trained in a particular area, they will be employed, that will facilitate the participation of women in such trades. So, a couple of recommendations. One, to governments, we need to have gender-sensitive learning infrastructure. We need to get governments to do the affirmative policies. Government must allocate part of the expenditure on TVET, for example, to support girls in TVET through need-based bursaries. We need to recruit significant numbers of competent female TVET instructors to teach, not in female courses, but in male-dominated programs. We need to get girls being instructors in these areas. And of course, we need to systematize the curriculum right from the lower levels of the education system. Recommendations to TVET institutions, but here I'm using the word TVET providers because of the fact that we need to always take into account the needs of all those girls, many of them who drop out, many of them who are in the rural areas don't have access to formal TVET. We need to take care of them, and they can profit from the activities of TVET providers in the informal sector. But in the formal sector, in the institutions, we need to see how we can re-engineer the content and methodology of training. Even in female disciplines, we must remember that technology can be introduced into hospitality, can be introduced into sewing. Now we talked about computer-aided drafting and so on. Once technology begins to navigate all these female disciplines, girls will begin to see that technology can be applied in other areas as well. So it's important. If you talk about the traditionally male-dominated programs, in order to get girls in, then we need to perhaps redesign the programs or do some pre-training courses for girls who select to enroll in these programs in order to familiarize them, with the basic concepts, terminology, and so on. You have a pre-program for them so that they can get used to some of the technologies and concepts. And of course, it's important that we talk about entrepreneurial skills for females and of course for boys as well. We can also look at the acquisition of international languages and communication and ICT skills in all programs so that they can better compete wherever they are. We can talk about outreach programs. TVET providers, TVET institutions should do that. It's not the work of government. We can also look at widening the range of vocational courses that are coming out because of the new technologies now. Girls are perhaps the greatest users of mobile phones and iPads. So why don't you get them to understand the technologies involved, to be able to repair and service these devices? Effective career guidance and counseling. Effective means you have to have professional guidance and counseling officers. But don't just be, more or less, don't just talk about it superficially, guidance and counseling. You need to have data about the different occupations, the job opportunities that are open to the various disciplines, those who follow the various disciplines, how much that you will earn if you perhaps follow these professions. All these things are part of effective guidance and counseling. And then you need to organize job readiness seminars for female students, because when you go out to the workplace, lots of sexual harassment, machismo. People really think that the man must be the guy who must be doing this. Girls must be taught how to be very assertive at the workplace, how to control and manage stress and conflict, self-confidence building. All these things must be done by training providers. And then regular in-service training of trainers and other staff on gender issues. Parents and guardians also have a role to play, as we've seen yesterday, because gender stereotyping often begins from the home. That's where the seeds are sowed. One, I want to go out and get a toy for my girl, and it's going to be a doll. It can't be a vehicle, it can't be an aeroplane. No, it must be a doll. And then in the home, the chores. Well, the girl must go into the kitchen and cook. The guy can go out and wash cars or things like that. So parents have to help. They need to support their girls to be able to resist peer pressure and societal attitudes that influence them to self-select into some of these traditionally female programs. We need to also sensitize the parents so that they are aware of the remediation strategies which can promote a change of paradigm. My concluding remarks: one, we need more and better academic research to understand, to evaluate the impact of all these strategies that we've been talking about. What is the real impact? We need to know so that we know those ones that are working well and those ones that are working less well so that we can know which ones to emphasize the more. The women who are in masculine professions at the workplace, how are they doing? How are they coping? Do we know? We need to find out more about that. Yesterday we had some successful stories, but there are lots of other women who may be out there, so we need to get evidence about how they are coping there to support further formulation of strategies. The important thing we realized when we were talking earlier on was that STEM is a powerful tool that can make a difference, STEM. And we need research, robust data, so that we can have policies that can TVETize girls into male-dominated disciplines. And please, don't let us forget girls in conflict zones. Girls who have dropped out of school, they also need employable skills for sustainable livelihoods. And TVET is capable of doing that, either formally in the classroom or perhaps in the informal economy. That too should be our concern. And finally, TVET for all. It's not only education for all. Now we should be talking also about TVET for all. I thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Dr. Affetti, for the very brilliant presentation. As bringing forth many issues with regard to gender in TVET, ranging from socio-cultural factors, right at the family level, going to policy, setting targets, but as you have rightly mentioned, many countries have developed framework, targets, but then how effective are we in the implementation? This is where the crux of the matter lies. This is where the biggest challenge is posed. And then in terms of the institutional framework, we are not talking only about formal training, right, in technical and vocational training centers. As you rightly mentioned about the importance of the informal sector, right, and training in the informal sector, which if my memory serves me right, accounts for almost 85% of the TVET, right, in many of the African countries, which is a fact which needs to be reckoned with. And also in terms of the idea of having TVET for all, not only education for all, but TVET for all, which I think is something that would need the attention of policymakers and international organizations, right, to come up with a proper strategy to make it a reality. I think also the idea is not just to increase the female participation in TVET programs, be it formal or informal, but at the end of the day, it should lead to positive labor market outcome in terms of employability, be it in paid jobs or for those who want to set up their own micro enterprise in terms of entrepreneurship. Well, I think it's a, what I'll do now, I'll ask each of the members of the panel, right, to start with, I'll start with Honorable Saku Dokuli, right, to just say a few words, right, on the topic before I pass on to the others. Mr. Dokuli.
Thank you very much. We listened to quite some interesting stories yesterday, and from the presentation by Dr. Effetti, clearly indicates that there are challenges in getting girls to TVET. But what are we doing in Liberia? As you all know, Liberia went through a devastating war, a civil war, that broke down the entire infrastructure of the country. And currently, we are in the reconstruction of the country, which makes TVET very, very important in the reconstruction process. As a result, the demand for skilled labor is high. And so everyone is concerned, everyone is interested in getting the country back to normal. And so our TVET institutions are highly involved in preparing young people to acquire the requisite skills needed for the reconstruction of the country. And in this, we realize that not only the boys are interested in going to TVET schools, but the girls as well. And so what we are doing is to make TVET attractive, to encourage more girls to come in. For instance, we are starting with the architecture sector. In there, it is quite easy to get girls because it is not so intensive in terms of the availability of the kind of skills that are required in the architecture sector. So we have more girls coming there because it has also to do with technology that are being infused into the teaching of architecture, drafting. We have the AutoCAD. So the work there is mainly working with the computers. So we have a lot of girls in architecture drafting. And not only having them to come to architecture drafting, but we also link them to employment. So most of the girls that are doing architecture drafting after their graduation are being employed by architecture firms in the country. So that we have succeeded in having more girls into architecture drafting. Even though predominantly most of them are in the service industries, they are in what you call restaurant management and so on. But most of them are taking on the challenge to get involved with other occupations. Another one that we are succeeding with is electricity. We are having more girls participating in electricity training because there is a high demand for skilled workers in the field of electricity, and opportunities are provided girls coming into this occupation. They have scholarships if they come in. They have financial support in terms of transportation and also some seed money to take care of the family while they are pursuing the electricity course. And so currently, Liberia is now going to have electricity from as far as Ivory Coast. That's been sponsored by the World Bank, and we will be requiring over 3,000 skilled workers in this area. And we are saying if we can get up to 40% of the number of participants into the training as females, they will be offered free places, and preference will be given to them when it comes to employment. So in the field of electricity, we are making headways in Liberia to incorporate girls into the training. And also, we are providing opportunities at the teacher training institutions to have more female teachers, which will serve as an encouragement for other girls to come into TVET. So on the whole, the perception issue in Liberia regarding certain occupation for males and certain occupation for females are looking at the prospects of the employability of graduates and the income they earn after their graduation. We are getting more girls to come to TVET. And so for us in Liberia, the issue of males going one way and females going the other way is not so much of an issue. As you all know, in Liberia, we have more, in terms of opportunities. We encourage more females. And as you all know, the head of our country is female. And because of that, more females are venturing into different sort of activities, into different sort of occupations, just to know that they too can do well. And so these things are happening in Liberia on a very rapid scale. And we think that other countries can follow suit and learn from our examples and to be able to share with other countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dukle. We'll hear now Ms. Doreen Bolkobo-Moji from Botswana.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I believe in our country, the myths are not there. For a while there, we had challenging facts. The one major one was the negative perceptions of the potential students who are completing whether secondary or junior school, and the parents on the critical value of TVET. And the second one was the linkage. There was a poor linkage with the labor market needs. One key area that for some time was a challenge was the poor quality of programs or courses that were offered in these institutions, both private and public. And we had no recognition from the employers or the key stakeholders. And lastly, the one challenging factor that we had, I'm saying had because things are coming up and solutions have been put in place. We had limited opportunities for levels. You find that if a student had only managed to do a certificate level, whether it's at a brigade or at a technical college, they can progress to diploma or to degree. So dual pathways as a way forward to address those three items that I've done was the government made a strategic move to ensure that TVET is being given a priority. So it's education for all, and it's inclusive for all. And everybody in our country to date, they're getting free education. When you look at the issue of a girl child moving from a rural area going to a place that is new to her. To us, those girls are offered, we have boarding facilities. And as they progress, they are offered self-contained rooms, whereby it has a bathroom she doesn't share with a colleague. And within the boarding facilities, we have support services, whereby we have this Dean of Student Affairs who attend to their issues on day-to-day, or a matron. And then they have what you call the Student Representative Councils who deal with them on issues of academics. And then for a girl child, normally we don't have pregnancy dropouts. A girl child, she falls pregnant, she's given 8 weeks to go and have that baby and come back. And when they come back, procedures and processes are in place to guide her to make sure that she's in line with the curriculum delivery on that semester. And then monthly, they are offered an allowance to assist them in their toiletry. Because remember, some of them are from poor backgrounds. And those that are orphans, systems are in place whereby we work in hand with the social services, that they make sure that on their monthly allowance or anything that they need is in place. In a case whereby the hostels or the boarding facilities are full, if they are orphans or they're from vulnerable environments, we make sure that working with the social services, they lease a house outside and it's been paid for. And then at institutional level, we say for the workshops, because we offer different multiple, like where the college where I am, where I'm the head of hospitality and tourism, we have a fully fledged hotel whereby they do all the IT, you name it, processes that goes through what is happening internationally. We do that. The program is aligned to that. So bathrooms, shower rooms are demarcated in such a way that we cater for the girl child and for the boy. And then for the facilities, to make sure that they are conducive. To tell you the truth, where I am, or within what is happening in our country, all institutions are being upgraded to the international standards. We, as a way forward for the government, we have seen a lot of introduction, or even the ministry as a whole, whereby for a very long time, we had only one ministry of education, and it had only one minister. And that has changed as a way how to address issues accordingly and giving them the priority that they deserve. So by the end of last year, October, we saw our ministry being divided into 3, so that focus is given according to the priority areas. We saw the basic education ministry that caters for pre-primary to secondary school. We saw the ministry that is overseeing skills development, that is at brigade level, where they refine skills. People that are in the street that the gentlemen have just talked about, they go through that. Those girl child that have failed their junior high, they go through that entry point, which you call the education pathways. So that is meant to cater for that. Then lastly, that's the ministry that I fall under, that is the Ministry of Tertiary Education, Research, Science and Technology, where it oversees all the universities, 4 education centers, and 8 technical colleges. And across the 8 technical colleges, we have 4 that are specific for diploma hiring. So if you have a student who's coming from a brigade and they've managed to pass, whether it's a girl child or a boy child, because with us we don't have that disparity, they can progress and do their diploma, which means now that level of entrance that we're talking about as a challenge, we've closed the gap. We have seen the government for 2015 coming up with education training sector plan, which one of its key mandate is to improve access, quality, inclusive, equity, accountability, and government in the education system. And that has been put in place. And that alone, it involved a lot of stakeholders in taking place. The development of the curriculum is no longer dependent by the colleges or by the government. The development of our curriculum now is driven by the industry's needs. And that is overseen by now a council that has been formulated, which is called the National Human Resource Council, which does its own research, and we develop our curriculum to cater for both a girl child and a boy based on the industry's needs. And then we saw the introduction of Botswana Qualification Framework. Why that? It's to ensure that our institutions, both private and institutions, qualify to offer those particular programs across, because we have millwright, we have instrumentation, we have electrical to cater for the mines, which is something that is coming up in our country. So Botswana Qualification Framework is there now to accredit these institutions and us lecturers. It's a prerequisite. I cannot be a lecturer in a technical education center without going through that audit. Institutions are audited. As we speak, by the end of all institutions, private and government, by the end of June, we should have all submitted our profile. As from this month, I believe by December we'll be audited. If we don't comply, the institutions will be closed. We saw the alignment of the Botswana National Qualification Framework taking place so that we no longer develop programs that are either franchise or they are not relevant to the needs of the market. At collegiate level, this is whereby the Dr. George said, how do we know? What are the key performance indicators? At collegiate level, we have what we call annual performance plan. And that's a strategic map that normally runs for a year, whereby when you look at education, are we delivering what we said we'll do? And we have key performance indicators, which are measures to say, for this quarter, for this year, as an institution, what are we intending to do and how are we intending to do that? So we do SWOT analysis. And like, for instance, as I speak here, I promote an objective called promoting stakeholder collaborations, which means the programs, any activity that is happening within the institutions, I should involve the stakeholders. Whether it's the chief, the community, the mayor, the regional director, they should be part and parcel, because they can come and moderate the program. They can come and walk in the class and observe and give feedback. They are part and parcel of, at the end of the semester, before the results are given out, they can come and audit what we said we have produced to ensure that the quality that we need is there. And lastly, as a way forward, like for this year, His Excellency the President of Botswana came up with key priority areas that he believes for this financial year 2017-2018, we Botswana, we should work together and serve the nation. And one of the key priority area is to make sure that there's increase in education funding. We should make sure that the courses that we are providing are relevant enough to create employment for our youth. We have to make sure that our youth, we eliminate certain key areas. Everybody should be part and parcel of what is taking place. There's full engagement, there's full involvement, there's continuous monitoring, right from bottom down, bottom up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doreen. Now we'll have some remarks by Ms. Mary of Nigeria.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mrs. Mary Obaiton from Nigeria, Federal Ministry of Education. I'm a Chief Education Officer in Special Education Branch where we have gender, adult and non-formal issues. We tackle them and take care of them. Now, in Nigeria, the formal education sector is designed in such a way that the school enrollment drive has been in the forefront, and a lot of progress have been made in that. The government is trying. We have many schools owned by government, the primary schools, the secondary schools, and the tertiary institutions, the ones we call universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, to take care of the training of teachers. Now, with time, we discovered that gender issues have been a problem in our country, because we have been able to take the story to the rural areas. We have been able to talk to people, bring their children to the formal system. But there is a huge gap in the informal system. And due to our peculiar nature, we all know that Nigeria is highly populated. And the government resources sometimes may not be able to meet the demands. So what the government did was to create institutions which we call vocational enterprise institutions and innovation enterprise institutions. They were recently approved by the federal government of Nigeria to provide a veritable alternative routes to higher education, because we know that we have the main school, the formal school, and could not meet up with the number of people, or let me say, the group of people that drop out of school who needs to be trained in some skills because of high demand for such skills. So the Federal Ministry of Education in my country provided these institutions that will offer vocational, technical, technology, or professional education and training at post-basic and tertiary to equip secondary school leavers and working adults with vocational skills and knowledge to meet the increasing demand for technical manpower. Now, due to lack of capacity of the higher education institution to accommodate, like I said, our population is very high, we know that. So they could not accommodate everyone due to some certain reasons. So these institutions were provided for those that are left out. But we still have gender issues. We have gender issues, a lot of it. Most of our girls, some of them, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, they don't, because of cultural issues, religious issues, family pressure, and all that social issues, we find it difficult to bring them to this institution to learn, to acquire skills. And because some of these areas are regarded as masculine jobs and areas that female cannot access, they are not supposed to do, they just stay away. So what we do is to talk to them, sensitize, do advocacy, take the word to them. Some of them is as a result of poverty. The parents could not afford to take them to these institutions. So the government forms what we call Mothers Association, train the mothers on vocational skills to give them a source of livelihood to be able to take their children or their girl child to such institutions. I want to tell you that there are some areas that we need to bring in the girl child. That is so obvious that we have low participation of girls in this skill acquisition. This area includes plumbing. I was just telling a friend that I've never seen a female plumber. I've never seen a female plumber throughout as a Nigerian and staying in Nigeria. Then we have tiling. We have areas of electrical works, even in ICT. So what we are doing now is that we do sensitization, we do advocacy, we bring them to these non-formal vocational enterprise institutions, and we tell them, when you learn this, you acquire these skills, we give you certificates, because in Nigeria, emphasis is placed on certificates. So they are certified and given jobs when they are available. But a problem we have in Nigeria is availability of jobs for these girls, young women. Some of them, after acquiring these skills, may not be able to get jobs. So what we do is to help them. Maybe we partner with international development partners to give them what they need, sometimes the tools, sometimes we give them money, but to set up this, whatever they want to do, according to the skills they have acquired, so that they can earn a living. So we have these institutions across the country. But another problem we have in Nigeria is the rural communities. Some of these institutions are not in the rural areas. Some of them are mostly in the urban centers. So we are trying to get some of these institutions, to build some of these institutions in rural areas and get the young girls into this institution so that they can have a source of livelihood and be relevant to themselves and the society. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. We'll now open the floor to some questions. Right? So when you're asking the question, please introduce yourself. And if you have got anybody in particular on the panel that you are addressing your question, please do so. Yes?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kiran from the Ministry of Education of Mauritius. Have a comment and a question as well. And the comment is, are we not going off track? Because I can see that the discussion is about getting girls and women into male-dominated professions. But then, should we really be working towards getting girls into male-dominated professions? Because why were these male-dominated professions, with all due respects to the ladies in the room? Was it because it required more brute force, or was more physically demanding? And is this not really a fallacy? Is it not that we should be rather having policies to educate and promote employment of girls and women in fields and sectors that are best suited to the natural biological setup? I started my career as an engineer in civil engineering, and over the years, I saw many of my friends who were girls migrating to different other subsectors of engineering: draftsmanship, in-office design, project management, contract administration, while the men were more apt to do works like site works supervision or construction works. I read from what Dr. Afeti was saying that the girls were more apt and were seen more to be in electrical engineering, computer science, science lab technology, architectural drafting, hospitality, for example. Instead of trying to break a brick wall, why don't we focus on making girls get more jobs where they are best fitted? Because I think the aim, the final result is to get girls get jobs, not specifically break into what is male dominated at the expense of their own physical. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think Dr. Afeti will respond to that.
Very, very briefly, because there are lots of hands up. It's all about two things, actually. One of them clearly is employability. But you know, employment opportunities cut across several domains. And if you don't get women to be present in all these areas, then you limit their chances of getting employment. That is why we are saying that don't limit girls to only so-called feminine jobs. Let them have a wide array of opportunities so that they can increase their chances of employment. So employability is one of the key reasons why we're talking about more girls into masculine occupational areas. The second reason is about balance. It's all about balance. We don't have to restrict girls to only certain professions. We can get them everywhere. At the same time, we don't have to undervalue so-called feminine jobs. In other words, boys should not consider nursing as inferior to, say, auto mechanics. So in trying to promote girls to go into masculine jobs, we should avoid the possibility of creating a bad reputation for feminine jobs.
Yeah, thank you. At the back there, yes. There are two at the back there. You can have a take, any of you first.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and I would like to thank the presenters for the sharing that they have done this morning. My name is Beatrice Mwapenga Hamsonde. I'm from Komesa. I'm also a Zambian. The presentation by the consultant, Dr. George, was very good. The recommendations, we have had these recommendations, similar recommendations before. So I would like to find out really how we are going to make all the stakeholders that are named to implement the recommendations, how we can make them implement the recommendations. Similar recommendations have been done before, but the issue that remains is how to implement. Why are those recommendations really not implemented? So I think I need to learn more on how we are going to make all the various stakeholders implement the recommendations. The other point is Botswana, for example, is doing very well. The sharing our sister has done this morning, I think, shows that Botswana is really doing very well in addressing some of these issues we are discussing here. So it would be good also to ensure that member states really document and share these good practices. For example, as a regional economic community, our role is to monitor and also compile good practices that happen in different countries. So it would be good that those member states that are doing very well, if they share those good practices so that we could document and share widely. I think cross-pollination is very good. When others learn from what others are doing, then they will probably be able to make the situation change in their different countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know whether anybody from AU would like to respond to that, or we can leave it at it if there's no... Rita, you would like to? No, okay. I think the point that you have made is very, very pertinent in the sense that we need to really have a concrete action plan with clear, measurable indicators, performance indicators, to see to it that we are progressing in terms of gender empowerment. Yes, there is, at the back again, there was another one was, yes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Angela Nafero from Uganda, Ministry of Education and Sports. I would like to thank the presenters for sharing the experience. I really appreciate the recommendation from the presenter that if we want girls into TVET, then appropriate investments are really very necessary. I would like to thank our sister from Botswana. She's really sharing a very interesting story, what's happening in our country. And I feel that's the way all of us need to go. But I would like to get some more clarification from her, especially in terms of getting the young mothers back into the TVET institutions. Are there special arrangements for the babies? Because quite often we are challenged back in our countries. If you want these young mothers back into these institutions, what kind of interventions are we making for the babies? Because these girls have to continue taking care of their babies, and where you're challenged, where we don't have childcare arrangements in these institutions, it becomes very, very challenging. I would also like to request her to share, to throw more light on the kind of experiences, because quite often we are challenged that you want these mothers back into the education system. What kind of image, what kind of perceptions are we creating for the respective education institutions? So I would want to hear from the Botswana's experience. What's happening? How are you managing to ensure that the girls that are in school are not encouraged, now that you're giving allowances for these young mothers, encouraged to go and become mothers too, because quite often it can be counterproductive. So thank you very much.
Yes, Doreen.
Good morning. To tell you the truth, we have never experienced a situation whereby the mother comes back after 8 weeks and she's posed with the challenge of not having somebody to take care of her child. Because like I said, they are provided boarding facilities whereby they are given meals across. And then during the course of the weekend, because they are given a semester schedule, if Thursday, Friday, they don't have lessons, they can then request a permission to go home to look for a child. So we have never been in a position whereby this girl child tells us that there's nobody to take care of the baby. And then when it comes to the allowances, in our case in Botswana, we normally say the moment a student is no longer at secondary school, whether it's a girl child or it's a boy child, she's an adult. So as we are giving them those allowances, because the allowances are given across board, like I said, in our country, we don't have issues of a girl and a boy. It's just they're all students, and they're all given equal opportunity to choose any other program that they want. And within the programs, they're guided, they're assisted as much as possible. So when they're given that allowance, it's for them to go, because they're provided with accommodation, they're provided with the meals. Normally they eat about 4 times in a day. That's how good they're taken care of. So we never think of saying any other motive behind the money that they are being given for allowances. The ideal is for them, because some of the parents live far, some of the parents don't have the money or the resources. So that money is specific to cater for their toiletry. It's not a big lump sum of money. It's a money that is enough from the government of Botswana to allow them to buy things like roll-on, a body lotion, basics. But everything from books, they get it from the college. So they don't spend anything. Like I said, TVET has been given priority, and it's education for all. To the extent that you will have students that have mild intellectual disability who are taken on board, and you have in-house psychologists, so that anything that takes place, they are being assisted. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. As a gentleman, second, yeah, please.
I'm going to do it in English, even if I prefer French, but all the speakers are English speaking. So, Nicolas Reuge, I am Regional Education Advisor from UNICEF West and Central Africa Regional Office. So I really appreciated all the intervention, particularly the context setting by Dr. George, and particularly the fact that he supports the idea to link the skills development with the labor market and the employment opportunities. But I think here there is one dimension that is missing, that we are talking about the stagnation of gender disparities in TVET, but we didn't talk about TVET coverage indicator, which have been stagnating for decades. So that I definitely think that and I make the parallel with one remark that was made yesterday by one colleague from Mauritius, that was just saying that we are talking about STEM for girls, but are we talking about STEM for all as well? What is the situation? So I definitely think that one element for the call of action of this forum, and probably coming out from this panel discussion, will be to engage countries to focus more actively on the TVET sectors, considering the huge demand both from the labor market but also from the stock of out-of-school children. This region accounts for half of the out-of-school children enumerated worldwide, 30 million children. You should also consider that in sub-Saharan Africa, 50% of the adolescent marginalized girls have never been to school or drop out school before the end of primary, so they are probably the major, client for the further TVET development and new opportunities of TVET. And I definitely think that this is missing from our discussion, such as the STEAM for All was missing yesterday. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Afeti will respond.
Je parle français aussi, donc je suis bilingue. But for the sake of the others, I will just speak in English. Very briefly, I think the points that have been raised by UNICEF are very, very pertinent. And this should be part of the things we should be talking about as we move forward. So it's just a comment I want to make. I wouldn't have the opportunity to go into the details, but we'll have some discussions afterwards. But then let me just, there was a question from Comesa. Why is it that the policies don't seem to be working, although we have had all these policies in the past? There are 4 reasons, actually. I've tried to mention 1 or 2 of them. The first one is that, is there any effective implementation of these policies? Has anybody taken the trouble to see whether these policies are being effectively implemented? That's the first one. The second one is that, what is the impact evaluation of these things? You need to follow up, do an impact evaluation to know what's going on. And then third one is that, what is the concrete evidence, data, robust data, to showcase the benefits to society of what we are saying? That is lacking. You need that robust data and evidence to be able to get things, policies to be implemented. And finally, we need to really stigmatize everybody. We are not doing that, and so the policy is hanging and without any support.
Yes. Yeah, please. The table right in the middle.
Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lindiwe Dlamini from the Kingdom of Swaziland. I would like to first thank Dr. George for the amazing presentation, and I hope as countries we are going to take the recommendations and implement them, because most of the time you find that evidence is there, but you find that as countries we are not implementing, and we are not even guided by the policies that we usually make. Our policies are collecting dust instead of being utilized. And then my question is to Botswana. I want to find out how have they sustained the good programs that they have, because more especially of supporting the girl child, because in Swaziland we have started piloting the distribution of dignity packs to girls into 29 schools, and the preliminary findings are indicating that this project is very expensive. So I want to find out how have they managed and sustained to carry on with such a very expensive program. And I also want to find out how do they ensure that they do not create gender disparities between the male and the female, because it looks like most of their programs now are mainly supporting the girl child. And I wish to learn more about the teenage pregnancy policy, because it looks good, and maybe I would love to know more. How have they developed their guidelines in terms of supporting the teen mothers or the mothers? Thank you.
Yes, Doreen.
Thank you, Swaziland. I'll take the second one to say the gender disparity between a boy and a girl. During my first presentation, I said in the case of Botswana, we don't have that disparity. We take care of the boy and the child the same way. They are given the support, whether it's the boarding facilities, whether it's the allowances, they're all given access equally. And then when it comes to funding or maintaining what we're doing, to tell you the truth, for a very long time, when we were coming to a TVET institution, there was a fee that the parents were paying. And those that were poor, they will be subsidized. Those who were often a boy child or girl child, they'll be taken through the process for social services whereby they were exempted. But about 2-3 years ago, a government made a move to now prioritize the TVET. TVET across, we have a range of programs from engineering, millwright, hospitality, tourism, you name it, it's a menu. But education is for all. So all the allowance, that when we mean education for all, we mean that the tuition fees, the monthly allowance, the feeding, the books, the government has invested in, or is investing in TVET. Institutions that right now they are dilapidated or they were not to the standard that has been required by the quality assurance body who comes and audit. All those institutions are going through revitalization, refurbishment to meet the standard that is required. So the government is the one that is sustaining that. We don't know how long that is going to be, but for now, it is working. We see a lot of stakeholders, whether it's private, whether it's, you name it. The mindset that all along, the parents are coming in to inquire about the programs that we have since that priority has been given. You see big establishments, whether it's a South African establishment, that are coming into the institution or to the ministry to say, which programs are you offering? Because every Motswana child, whether it's a boy or a girl, they are given the opportunity to go and study for free. to get their monthly allowance. If they don't get accommodation at the boarding facilities, they lease accommodation outside and they are given full allowance, which will allow them to pay for the accommodation, to buy their meals, and to allow them to even get into transport. So that is the government that is given that as a priority, to ensure that as a way, remember, for a very long time, our country has been dependent under Diamond. So that has been it's been a shift now. So everybody, we're going through innovation, we're going through research to make sure that we meet the needs of the industry as a way to grow our country. Thank you. And then when it comes to a teenage pregnancy, we have what you call student handbooks. We do what you call inductions. Students are taken through the processes to say, if you get pregnant, if you do this, these are the support services that will be in place. To tell you the truth, in our country, issues of pregnancy, issues of a lot of things that I pick from other countries, we don't have them that much, especially when you reach tertiary institutions because you are an adult. So you find some of the students who come there, they're not teenage per se, because normally the students that are coming in, like for this time, it's about 18 to 24 years. So that child, by the time they reach 21, they're adults. That's what is in our country. So we take them through the process. We have the guidance and counseling office. If they are pregnant and they're scared, or if they have any social issues, we have that facility that is available to cater for them. Thank you. I hope I answered your questions.
Well, we are running out of time. We'll take one last question from the gentleman here. And then remember, yeah? Okay, we'll take two questions, one from here and the last one from this table. And for the others who are not asking questions, remember, if you can jot down two of your recommendations from each of the table, there will be somebody who will be collecting at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Merci. Docteur Son, Burkina Faso. J'ai apprécié la présentation du docteur Rafidi. Il a fait les stéréotypes, mais je m'attendais aussi à ce qu'il s'attaque aux acteurs pour lever les contraintes. Et depuis hier, nous avons défini le rôle, ou en tout cas approché le rôle des parents, de l'État, mais je constate que jusque-là, on ne parle pas de la société civile. Or, je pense que la société civile a un rôle très important dans le domaine de la sensibilisation, de l'information, d'autres points où la société civile peut intervenir. Je voudrais quand même qu'ils nous disent un mot sur les acteurs. Merci.
Oui, en fait,
Oui, vous avez bien raison. Il faut absolument engager aussi la société civile.
Yes, the last question from this table. Please go ahead.
Merci. Merci. En Côte d'Ivoire, je crois que les stratégies qui sont mises en œuvre vont en droite ligne avec ce que le docteur Apiti disait. Il a dit qu'il faut mettre des stratégies vraiment concrètes en place. Et l'exemple que nous mettons en œuvre actuellement, c'est que nous sommes sortis d'une période de crise de 10 ans et un peu comme le Libéria, il y a eu beaucoup de difficultés et donc il fallait les rattraper. Et comment nous le faisons? On a mis d'abord en place un secrétariat d'État pour vraiment booster l'enseignement technique et professionnel. Ensuite, il y a des actions que nous menons, c'est-à-dire des sensibilisations, des journées professionnelles, où on dit par exemple investir dans les filles, dans les filières industrielles en Côte d'Ivoire. Et puis nous faisons des coachings de filles avec des personnes comme Madame Amicia qui sont là, qui coachent des filles qui veulent vraiment embrasser des métiers, des filières industrielles. Il y a également des bourses qui sont octroyés, c'est-à-dire on fait un peu la discrimination positive, 180 000 francs de bourse pour les filles qui veulent aller dans les filières industrielles et les garçons 36 000 francs. C'est-à-dire que c'est injuste, mais il faut booster cela, il faut insister, il faut vraiment pousser les filles et à terme, on voudrait en 2020 passer de 18% de filles dans les filières industrielles à 25%. Je crois que ce n'est pas très fort, mais tu vois, l'année, disons, en 3 ans, je crois que nous avons cette ambition d'y arriver. Donc maintenant, des actions, on espère que ça va porter. Et justement, les indicateurs dont le docteur Apiti parlait, je crois que ces indicateurs, il faut vraiment les mettre en place pour qu'on puisse faire une comparaison et voir où est-ce qu'on en est exactement. Merci.
Well, thank you for the supplementary information that you provided for Côte d'Ivoire. So now I think what we'll do, we'll allow for a few minutes for you just to jot down your recommendations, right, before we break for coffee. Is that all right, Rita? Yeah. Well, I hope you have had some time. Well, if not, can I have your attention, please? Yes, can I have your attention, please? Well, I know where we are short of time. For those of you who have not been able to complete it, you will be having some time just to jot down your recommendations, and the organizers will be collecting the papers. Well, let me end on this note and thank Mr. Afeti again for his presentation and the members of the panel. Thank you all for your attention.
Messieurs, nous vous invitons à rejoindre vos places, s'il vous plaît. We invite you to join your respective seats, and we are going to be starting the session. Thank you. Can I invite the audience to be seated? We'll be starting the session very shortly. Thank you very much. Merci. Je voudrais inviter à cette session, I would like to invite to this session the panel members to join me on the table, please. We have Miss Blessing Fortune Cuomo from Nigeria, and Constance Swenica from Ghana, and Mrs. Litlauti Rajman from Mauritius, to kindly come up to the table, please. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Peut-être pour faire plaisir à nos amis francophones, je vais commencer en français, puis après on va faire la session en anglais. Donc bonjour mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue et merci d'avoir répondu présent à cette session. Et donc cette session est une session qui continue, on va dire une extension de la session de ce matin, sur la formation technique et professionnelle, et avec en particulier un partage d'expérience. Donc nous avons avec nous, je vais les présenter dans quelques minutes, cette session sera donc une session principalement de partage, non dans les deux sens, partage avec donc nos distingués invités qui sont présents ici avec nous, mais partage avec vous-même également. Je vous inviterai à un moment donné de nous partager vos expériences lorsque je vous donnerai la parole tout à l'heure. Je me présente, je suis Rico Ogbar, je suis directeur au ministère de l'Éducation et des Ressources humaines, de la recherche scientifique et de l'enseignement supérieur de l'île Maurice. Nous présentons les excuses de Madame Bali, du ministère de Gender, de l'égalité des genres à l'île Maurice, qui malheureusement a dû s'excuser pour une raison urgente ce matin au ministère. Donc j'ai été invité à être modérateur de cette session et j'espère que nous allons ensemble avoir une excellente session à tous. Et cette session, comme on a dit, est une session de partage et un partage d'expérience. Donc on va la diviser en trois parties. Une première partie, donc après une brève introduction par moi-même, je vais laisser la parole à nos expertes qui sont avec nous sur ce panel et elles vont nous partager précisément leur expérience respective concernant donc chacune d'entre elles dans leur domaine de prédilection et qu'est-ce que cette expérience, elle, en tant que dame, en tant que femme, dans la formation souvent technique et professionnelle, dans le secteur des métiers techniques et professionnels, quelle est leur expérience dans ce secteur qui est souvent un secteur, hélas, trop dominé par les hommes, où les hommes en tout cas sont majoritaires dans bien des cas. Nous avons vu cela ce matin. Après notre session de présentation vers vous, on vous donnera la parole. Donc à ce moment-là, pour vous-même, si vous avez des questions envers les panélistes et si vous avez des expériences de votre côté que vous voudriez partager, ce sera un plaisir pour nous d'interagir avec vous. Et donc la troisième partie sera donc de conclure cette session afin de déterminer quelles sont les idées qui pourraient en émerger par rapport à nos discussions et donc quelles seraient les policy directions, les directions politiques qu'une conférence de ce type pourrait en émerger vers nos directeurs, nos organisations respectives, afin que la formation professionnelle, en tout cas pour cette session en particulier, pour la formation professionnelle, comment est-ce que cette formation professionnelle pourrait être mieux dirigée vers les filles, quels sont les facteurs que nous allons voir qui pourraient permettre de mieux diriger ces modes de formation professionnelle vers des filles, et ce sont des secteurs souvent dont on en a bien besoin. Donc je vous remercie, et ce que donc nous avons avec nous, je passe à l'anglais. Donc we have with us 3 distinguished experts. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to first invite you to give a round of applause to these experts, because as I will present them to you, you will see that they are quite experienced in their respective areas. So please start the session by giving a round of applause of our 3 experts who have taken their time to fly to Mauritius, as you have, and also over and above that accepted to share their experiences. So the first of our experts is Blessing Fortune Cuomo. Blessing is from Port Harcourt, Nigeria. She's a holistic scientist, a holistic healing scientist with extensive knowledge of traditional medicine and holistic healing. She's the CEO of a therapeutic studio. She's presently doing her BSc in medical physiology. Her experience in counseling and healing of patients using alternative medicines is well appreciated in her region. As you know, traditional and alternative medicines are very under-researched areas, and very often in the African continent, male-dominated areas. So, at a time where medical treatment is getting more expensive in most of our countries, this experience of a woman in traditional medicine, in alternative medicine, is certainly an area which I'm sure today will be able to give us more light into how women can get into these areas of traditional medicines. Blessing will share her experience on this, the more so that we are given to understand that this year she's been a 2017 awardee of the Shell Live Award, and a 2017 finalist of the GSEA Nigeria. So as first panelist today, we will be having her. What I will propose to do is I will introduce to you the various panelists as they're going to be intervening. This will give and set the scene more appropriately for each of the panels. So we also have with us Constance Swenica. Constance is from Ghana, and of course I will introduce to you in a few minutes. And then last by no means least, we have Mrs. Lilauti Rajman-Jusri from Mauritius. Those from Mauritius need no introduction to Mrs. Rajman-Jusri as the director of the MEXA, but more of this when she will be given the opportunity to take the floor. But to begin with, ladies and gentlemen, I have the great pleasure of inviting Blessing Fortune Cuomo from Port Harcourt, Nigeria, to make her intervention. Please, Blessing.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cuomo Blessing Fortune from Nigeria, a medical student of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I'm the CEO and founder of the Herbal Therapeutic Studio. I'm also the founder of Fortune with Skill Up Nigeria program. I'm so happy to be here to share my experience as a woman in TVET, men-dominated sectors. I'm as well happy meeting our beautiful and awesome new friends. You guys are amazingly awesome, sincerely. Firstly, before I begin, I would love to recognize 2 personalities who have made tremendous impact in my life. The first is a person of the Holy Spirit. I call him my confidant, my advocate, my comforter. He's my senior partner. Sweet Holy Spirit, I welcome you. The second person is my darling husband, Captain Frank Como. He has given me every reason to move ahead, even when I feel like quitting. His words are always, Mama, I know you can do it. You've got what it takes. Go out there and make me proud. This word keeps me on the move. I was born in a small village in northern Nigeria, raised in a home, in a poor home, and I often returned to the hospital after being discharged, as I was always unable to fully recover in my home environment. As a child, while growing up, I hated going to school because of the kind of school I was enrolled into and because of the teachers that taught me in primary schools. And as I grew up seeing others pass through the same challenge of treatment and relapse, I became curious on how to help, and I said to myself, if I must help, I need to go to school to get the required skill to be able to assist. I became more interested in science when I was in secondary school because I had a very good biology teacher who mentored and encouraged me. But in my first year in the university as a medical student, I developed interest in fetal sciences. Some countries call it plant science. Because I discovered through research that what we give to our body or environment determines how healthy we become. In 2013, before my 18th year birthday, I got married. And in the course of childbearing, I had severe complications, which resulted into cervical stenosis, uterine scars, and eventually I stopped menstruating for over a year. I visited numerous hospitals in Nigeria in search of solution, but to no avail. I then resorted to researching on the natural ways to heal my body. My therapeutic discovery and healing marveled doctors who cared to know what I did after conventional medication failed. My health breakthrough led to the creation of the Rehoboth Therapeutic Studio in 2015. At the Rehoboth, we help individuals take active part in the maintenance of their health and in the treatment of their disorder through a more natural approach to healing. This transcends the traditional perspective of disease as a simple matter of biology, and it espouses the basic skill required in healthcare, which includes psychological, social, and economical. To date, we have our impact in several locations, with over 2,000 women benefited from our program, and we expect to reach more 10,000 women within the next 2 years as we become more established. We have carefully tracked the progress of the women within our program, from their initial interview to their final graduation. The result of the review shows significant results. Family income increased by an average of 48%, while the number of days of hospitalization reduced by more than 62%, considering the average cost of hospitalization as $100 per day, which is approximately 36,000 naira in Nigeria currency. To the best of my knowledge, the Rehoboth is the only systematic, innovative, anti-poverty healthcare solution developed in Nigeria and run by members of the civil society. Rather than compete with medical professionals, we complement their effort, thus making them more effective. I have received several awards for my research on anti-cancer therapeutic products. My research has covered fetal fertility therapy, fetal prostate therapy, fetal benign tumor therapies, fetal immune therapies. But currently, my research focuses on phytoantiretroviral therapy and insecticidal properties on citrus fruit peels. I have been published in journals of biological sciences. Last year, I founded an organization, Fortune Will Skill Up Nigeria, with more than 50 women members. We aim to help women to become more effective scientists by teaching them to write scientific proposals and papers. This program, Fortune Will Skill Up Nigeria, help encourage women to see studying university-level sciences. It encourages them that they can achieve success in science and vocational study by determination, dedication, and hard work. Many young women, many young students in rural communities too, we empower them through a vocational skill training program. Many young female students who have plans of stopping after secondary school or after their university first degree are now considering pursuing further studies in science after working with me, as they are encouraged, see me as a very young woman who has achieved great success. In conclusion, Wright Lord, a famous architect, was once asked by a reporter, Lord, amongst your magnificent structure, which is your best? He said, my next one. He believed in one principle of stretching forward, not settling for his past successes. In same vein, like, Lord, I will say the world is waiting for my super story. And I've come to find out that the greatest pleasure in life is doing what they say cannot be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blessing, for this experience of yours in an area which is indeed of very relevance in our African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you our second speaker of the day today, Constance Kwenika from Ghana. Constance has a BA in sculpture and is the CEO and Managing Director of Accents and Arts Limited and the principal of the Design and Technology Institute in Accra. She has a track record of an entrepreneur in Ghana. I think she will have an opportunity to show that in a video in a few minutes. She's the Vice President of the Stanford Seed Transformation Network, and she's been awarded the SME Industrial Award for Metal Construction in 2015 and was the 2013 recipient of the Metal Product of the Year. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Constance Kwenika from Ghana, who is going to talk to us. I think we can go straight to the video, please, which I understand is a video from YouTube.
You know, they didn't take me seriously. They probably thought that I wouldn't last because it's a tough environment. It's very physically challenging. But I think that challenge, you know, that drive alone was what inspired me to continue to go on, just to prove people wrong. My name is Constance Kwenika. I run a company called Accents and Art in Accra. I grew up with 3 other siblings that were very math and science oriented, and I was the different one. It took my mom, who was an educator, to realize that I expressed my intelligence through my hands. So she encouraged me to do art, and throughout my education, I studied art all the way to university. Our universities embarked on a lot of strikes. So there were periods where we're at home, you know, for months or sometimes for a whole year. So within one of these strikes, I ended up working in a carpentry workshop with about 60 male carpenters. My job was to sand down by hand, you know, with raw sandpaper. You know, it was a very vibrant environment. It was very interesting. And then onwards, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. Accents and Art is into metal fabrication. So we produce more, I would say, functional art for construction professionals. It's amazing once you start working with metal that it's not as difficult as you think, because metal is so malleable that it lends itself to anything that you want it to be. Started opening my workshop to students from the universities just to get the same experience that I had, the same opportunity to create this new awareness that industry experience is desperately needed. So in one of the training sessions, Tinito she's a tomboy. There were 20 girls that we spoke to, but she took on the challenge and she came in. And I thought this is somebody that if we gave her the training, she would be a good role model. Within the year that she joined the company, she has risen to be one of the best artisans that we have. She's really talented. And I ask her now, how do you feel? You know, she tells me that she goes back into her community and a lot of the girls want to be like her now. And, you know, these are stories that we want to celebrate. We want to see more girls like her. We want to dispel that notion that women cannot enter into male-dominated trades. I have decided to set up the Art and Design Institute because we really don't have anything of the sort on the continent. So it just dawned on me that there's so many kids who truly are talented but are just left out on the way. And it's a huge problem in Africa because then what happens to these kids? So much wasted talent. Sometimes when I'm in my office, lots of schools around the area. You see the little kids, the 5-year-olds, the 10-year-olds, sometimes they peep into the workshop and you see them pointing to projects that we're working on, and kids now have access and they see that talent now can earn you an income. Where before, if you said to your parent that you wanted to study art, they'll tell you that you'll be a struggling artist or you will not make money. It's a good thing when you know that you're the heartbeat of the community and everybody has a sense of pride that you're part of them. I think for me that is the greatest feeling, that you know that you've impacted so many lives. It's a calling. I look forward to the challenges. You just find ways of maneuvering and finding the solutions yourself. That's it.
Thank you very much for this presentation, Constance. So we give over the floor to you for your intervention on that video and on your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. So as the video said, I started my company, Accents in Art, 17 years ago. I graduated with a degree in art at a time when if you had a degree in art, that means you were unemployed. 90% of my mates that I studied art with ended up in the banking sectors. And because of the experience that I had gained in the carpentry workshop, I set up my company. Within the years, we've become the market leaders in the industry. And just 2 months ago, we won Metal Fabrication of the Year. Fast forward, our lecturers started seeing the inroads I was making in industry, and I was approached to allow students into my facility. But because of the experience that I had in the carpentry workshop, I realized that the gap between industry and academia was as a result of this industry gap, which was not part of the school curriculum. So we have partnerships with almost all the polytechnics and universities in Ghana, which number about 10. We've trained over 450 students, out of which 60 are girls. I was doing this at my own cost for years. So just 2 years ago when we applied for a World Bank Danida Skills Development Fund, and we got just about $60,000 to train. It was adjudged top 3 of all projects for the past 4 years by the World Bank. And because of this effort, I was nominated to sit on the Skills Development Board. I think it's very important for a woman in a male-dominated sector not to lose essence of the fact that we're women. And so I celebrate my femininity a lot. I work mostly with men. 90% of my colleagues are men. The work environment is fully men. And so for me, it's very important that I look pretty. That when I go to site meetings or I go to meetings with engineers and architects, that I wear a dress. I think it's important that, you know, we celebrate that just because you're a woman in a male-dominated sector, that you shouldn't look like this. And I think that is one of the biggest things for a lot of girls, that, you know, the stereotyping that you should not look like this to work in a male-dominated sector. So that's one of the biggest things that I make a conscious effort to celebrate that femininity. And for the girls that go through my program, I make sure that they're given a lot of visibility. At any point in time when you have international reporters coming in to see our facility, that they are given a lot of profile, because I think that really, really boosts their confidence, you know, once they see that, you know, just because I'm in this sector, this is where I potentially could be. And it's important that we celebrate as many role models as we can, because when they go back into their communities, then you find more girls want to be superstars like them. So that's very important to me. And then I decided that we needed to speak out, because we're by a white man, because of this the sort of level work that we do. And so this year, I took it upon myself to introduce myself to almost all the ministers in related industries, a lot of social media campaigns, a lot of newspaper articles. And I was amazed at, the calls that started coming in. Wow, we didn't know that this is what you were doing for 17 years, quietly. Or we didn't know that you did that project or that project. And I just realized that one of the most effective ways of making government listen is to also voice out. And I think for me, growing up, recognizing that we all have a purpose in life, and finding myself, I realized that probably this is my mission, that when we all come into this world, we all have a purpose, and it's important that we all find our purpose in life. Based on this, I decided I'm going to set up the Design and Technology School, which would be the first of its kind. Last year, I sponsored myself to tour almost all the top design schools in Europe and the US. And what I saw really broke my heart, because these are schools that are minimum 150 years old. And our technical schools were so poorly equipped, and I thought this doesn't make sense. So I came back and I co-founded the design school with a Swedish guy, and I said to him that we're going to build in Africa, the first of its kind, a top international design school. And we want to create synergies between the Stanford Design School. I want to see schools that I saw in Europe right here in Africa. We want to create the synergy between students that will do exchange programs here. I want to see that for my people, because I think that when people see that, you have schools like this and kids like me who come from backgrounds like I did, but had to pick up skill sets from the informal trade, working alongside carpenters, and at the same time, the entry level for some of these artisans, we make up about 85%, also see that, the entry points into a lot of the top projects would be as a result of skills that would go up. And it's important that we create the right synergies between the informal sector and then the formal sector. For me, I think that developing the next generation of critical thinkers should be students that will be taught design thinking skills to solve problems relevant for the continent in terms of clean energy, agriculture, oil and gas, and the creative industry, as well as construction. And then the role of ICT in all of this cannot be left out. And then to the role of government. There's a lot of talk shop and a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings, but nothing really gets done. Politics should be left out of education. And then the role of stakeholders as well as private sector. And I find that in my country at least, the conversations between private sector and policymakers is almost non-existent, very wide. That should stop from today. And the length at which bureaucracy is just too much. We should shorten bureaucracy and, begin to quicken things, because I think we live in a very critical sector that the role of ICT has accelerated things so much that we cannot afford to waste time. The role of families as well. When I was studying in university, my mom, didn't put any pressure on me because she had 3 other kids that were bringing home straight A's in maths and science, so there wasn't any pressure on me. But at the same time, it took my confidence away, because I was a child that was totally ignored. So far, she has her crayons and paper, that was fine. And all I was told was just go and study art. But she herself didn't know where the art would take me. 25 years down the line, she said to me that, I never imagined. I don't blame her, because even though she was an educator, the role of counseling and guidance, career counseling and guidance, that people do not even know what sort of careers exist in the industry, or if you're creative or you're talented or you know how to use your hands. So coming into industry, I realized that this was where the problem was. Parents sometimes are not even aware. I had to figure things out myself, everything that I knew. My university didn't teach me anything. I felt like 4 years in art school was a waste of my time. Because if I went back to school and I built tables and chairs because I had learned that in the carpentry workshop, I would get a D. Because my lecturer would tell me that the curriculum did not say build tables and chairs. But I was doing sculpture, and sculpture allows you to build. So I felt that if I had known what I had known, I would just have gone to a carpentry workshop, worked alongside these carpenters who didn't know how to read and write, but I picked up the skill sets from there. You know, so the perception that kids like me who are talented are not smart should also be erased as well. You know, what were some of my challenges? Some of my challenges was just so tiring to have to prove myself all the time. You go into meetings and people realize that, oh, you're a welder. The first thing they'll tell you that, oh, let me see your hands. Yes. Let me see how rough your hands are. You know, but at the same time, I found out working alongside men that men would also be the same people who would hold you up once they think that you've proven yourself and they accept you. Because everything that I picked up working in this industry was as a result of my male counterparts. And so I don't speak about my journey without also acknowledging the role of men who helped me up. Some of the lessons that I learned was that it's not that jobs don't exist. Jobs do exist, but the skills relevant for the entry points of some of these jobs is not there. I am very privy to work on very high-level projects. Most of our clients are the top 10% of the market. We go onto some of these sites and we're working alongside expat labor because they tell you that your people don't have the right skill sets. And so when we talk about skill development, it's not TVET as usual, but the right sort of TVET which will give people access to the jobs that exist. There's a lot of construction on the continent, and so we would require a right pool of people who know how to use levels, would know how to read drawings, and things that industry requires, which will give them access to some of these top jobs that exist. So I think for me, the way forward is immediate overhaul of our educational system. That how do we bring industry to be part of curriculum adaptation? Because working in industry, I realized that working in industry comes with its own issues. Health and safety issues, lean, world-class manufacturing, production processes, you know, picking up entrepreneurial skills. How do you even teach a person how to cost a product? So these are things that school would not teach you, but you can only find some of these subjects as a result of working with industry professionals. We've gotten to the stage where I think the pace cannot be quickened even more, because by 2050, we're told that Africa would have the youngest population in sub-Saharan Africa. And to take advantage of this potential 500 billion which can come to the continent. At the same time, it also presents itself with a lot of unemployment issues which could lead to social unrest. So critically, the time to invest into the training of teachers and the rate at which TVET policies is overhauled cannot be overemphasized. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Constance, for this excellent presentation. Our third speaker for this panel session, ladies and gentlemen, is Mrs. Lilauti Rajman-Jusri from Mauritius. Mrs. Rajman-Jusri is presently the director of the Mauritius Expert Association. She has a degree in managerial studies and is coming here with an experience of 17 years in the expert sector. She is, simply put, through her organization, the MEGSA, the voice of the expert sector in Mauritius. She will certainly share with us the experience in leading at the national level an export system of a country. We are here talking of how women can make a difference in technical and vocational education and training, This happens both at the grassroots level, but this also happens at the national levels and at the driving policy levels. So from the Mauritian perspective, if there is someone who can intervene in this sector and tell us how can women and girls make a difference at national level through national policies, through national strategies, Mrs. Ramjan Jusri is certainly that lady here. She will therefore present to us the expert system through a women's perspective, especially in some areas that are dominated by men in industry and in export. Her experience at international level will also be valuable in her intervention, as she is presently the Vice President of the African Cotton Textile Industries Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Rajman Jusri.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ogba. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that it's nearing lunch. I hope that your stomach is not shouting, so I'll be very brief. But truly, Mr. Ogba, and dear colleagues in the room, when I was preparing the presentation, I was thinking of what to talk to you. But when I listened to my colleague next to me, I'm just going to throw away my presentation and I'm going to share my experience. Because as MEXA, the Mauritius Export Association, we receive lots of delegation from Africa coming to Mauritius and to know how the manufacturing sector has emerged into the country. And that's where I would like to talk about it, because I strongly believe, and I think all my colleagues Mauritian in the room will concur with me, that through the manufacturing, the development of the manufacturing sector, we've seen women empowerment, we've seen women employment growing, we've seen the ladies going up, taking responsibilities, earning a living for a family, building up a family, and now their children are degree holders, everything. So I would like to just share a country led to that woman empowerment. And from my experience, Mr. Ogba rightly said, I'm the vice chairperson of the African Cotton Textile and Industries Federation, active, and we regroup 21 African countries, especially the textile and apparel industries. And I've been able to visit some of your countries in Africa. So based on my 5 or 6 years of experience from active, I can, talk about it. Really, and I can see that out of the participants, South Africa and Kenya and Tunisia, maybe you are much well developed, but the other countries maybe would like to learn from how Mauritius emerged and how the manufacturing sector became a success story of the country. And I think that everybody, when they come to my office and would like to learn from the experience of Mauritius, says, how do you manage to do that? How did you eventually Mauritius become a success story in the manufacturing sector? I think the only thing that I say to everybody when I meet them in my office is that in Mauritius, we have a very good government and private sector dialogue. And that's a key point. You mentioned about it. I was just listening to you. It's not a perfect love story, and my friends in the room will concur with me. Sometimes discuss, sometimes we never agree, but at the end of the day, we always try to find a consensus for the benefit of the country. It's never easy to implement any action, but we strive to do it, and I think by having the private sector and the government working together is the first step to make things happen in any country. The private sector is here because they are the ones who are working, who are making things happen, and I think that the government is a facilitator. We also act as, when things are not happening well, we go back to the government and say, guys, this is not working. And fortunately in Mauritius, we do have a listening ear of the government. Again, it is not a perfect love story, but it helps a lot. That's one of my first message to everybody. Now, what about the manufacturing sector and the export sector? I represent the export sector. In the export sector in Mauritius, we constitute of the textile and apparel sector, the seafood sector, the jewelry, the light manufacturing, agro-based factories. So, and we contribute around 7 to 8% of the GDP of the country. The export sector, together with the manufacturing sector, we are the largest employer on the private sector front of the country. And when I was looking at the statistics, right from 1982, that's where the export sector really started. From there up to now, the female employment is highest. We have 50% of our total employment in the manufacturing sector is women. Now, they are at factory level, very true, but we've seen lately, and that's where it comes from the development of the country, more and more we are seeing girls joining the technical jobs. And economists will tell you, any economist in the country, I've been making presentation to the World Bank, to the United Nations, to everybody, and my message has been always to those institutions. Why don't you do something in Africa so that you develop the manufacturing sector into the country? You have to invest into Africa, grow that manufacturing sector. Africa has got all the resources they have. For instance, in the textile and apparel sector, you've got the best cotton in the world. You are taking that cotton, you are exporting it to Asia, they are making the yarn and the fabric, and it's coming back to Africa. Oh, come on, guys. Where are you? You need to take your own destiny in your hands. I think that's the message. The manufacturing sector, of course, meant for export, has a highest multiplier effect into economy. Every job that you create is another free jobs that you're creating. So, and the entire other sectors that you're developing around is fabulous. It's by developing the economy that you're creating jobs. So my message is that you need to develop that sector. You've got everything you have. For us in Mauritius, yes, what about the vocational training? As I told you that in Mauritius, we had a problem. We had a high unemployment rate in the 1980s. We were a monocrop economy, and the government then decided that we need to diversify the economy. That's where they started to give the incentive, the right incentive, and put up the right framework to develop the export sector of the country. They went out and attracted investors into the country. From 1982, that's where investment flooded into the country. Factories opened up, employment were created, lots of women joined the sector. There was, at that time in 1982, the women were paid lower than men. Then in 1985, the government said, equal pay, equal rights. So they amended the law, and from 1985, women and men were paid equally. So that's, and I think that remained up to now. Now, the manufacturing sector cannot live without vocational training, and I mean it. If you looked at all developed countries, be it Singapore or Germany or United States, they all have a strong manufacturing sector. And the success behind those manufacturing sector is that they have a strong vocational training institute that support that industry. For us at MEXA, I think vocational training is very important for the survival and, in fact, the efficiency of the manufacturing sector and the export sector. Because we are competing with the world. And in Mauritius, we don't have, unfortunately, and fortunately so, we have only our brains as resources. We don't have much. We have to make with what we have. So efficient, and we have to compete at international level. Sometimes we lose order because of 1 cent. So efficiency and productivity is high on our agenda. And where do we get that efficiency is mainly from our manpower. We invest in our people. Training is of direct importance for our manufacturing sector. That's where I think the IVTB started in 1986, 88. I think it was a request from the private sector. I was given to understand, funded by the private sector, partially. And the government comes in as well. So again, a partnership with government and private sector. Right policy decision, any way. I'm not telling you that it's a perfect story, but it's working. It's generating our quality people. Recently, 2 years back, because of the problem of mismatch, I think it's a general problem in the world, where we as an industry, me as an industry, as an export sector, we've got jobs, but we don't find the skills, the right competences. That's where, beside IVTB, the government came up with a dual training program, which is the work and placement, funded by government again. So we are taking school leavers. At MEXA itself, we developed 2 dual training programs on dual training, meaning that we have taken our people, for instance, in the production area, engineering sector. We've taken our best engineer, we got them around a table, we brainstorm what are the right curriculum that is fitting the needs of the sector. We develop our own curriculum, we're working with the university, so it's going to be it's a degree course. We then went out onto the market, attracted 20 school leavers, we placed them in the companies. They are being funded by the government and the private sector, meaning that their course fees are being funded 50% by government and 50% by the private sector. The student, the young guy and young girl is now working 2 days, 3 days in the factory, and they are at the same time studying 3 days at the university. So whatever they are learning in the university, they're applying into the factories. And I can tell you that we are running 2 batches now like this, and I think they are the best students that we are going to have. In next year, they are going to be on the marketplace. And I think that we will get the best out of. We have no option. Vocational training is the future if you want a good manufacturing sector. So my message is that to all of you, that vocational training, work with your government. It's not very easy, I know. It's a challenge, but we have to do it. Now, whether women, sorry to come into that very, very sensitive subject. Why every time women? Women and vocational training. I don't think it's an issue. It's a normal development, social development of your country. Women and men. Sorry. Whenever somebody invites me for this, I'm sorry to divert here, but I think it's a normal social development of any country. Yes, I may have concurred with you in 1988. Maybe that would have been a challenge. But all the women, Mauritian ladies around the room here, Mauritian ladies, and even Mr. Ogba, I think, will say that today it's true, it's as challenging, it's very challenging for a woman to do a business in Mauritius, but I don't think it's harder than a man, because we've got the right framework to do it, right? That's where the social development, the right government policies is very important. So you have to start by recognizing the rights of women. Equal rights, equal pay. That's where you start. And then the ladies, the young girls need to be given the same rights for education. Create the right framework. And that's what would happen. In Mauritius, I don't see, and when I go into the factories, true, there are certain areas where you will still see more boys than girls. But give us like 10 years down the road, and I think that will match it. In those technical jobs where we are lagging behind, the young girls will catch up. So my message is here, is only the social development of your country will bring you there. But you need to sow the right seeds, the right policies and right framework to make it happen. So, Chair, I'm sorry to have taken your time, so I think I will end up my presentation and I will wait for more questions to come in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rajman. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, we have been just enriched by 3 excellent case presentations. We have seen one of them, which is an example of how an entrepreneur from Nigeria works in the sector of health industries, very contextualized, very indigenous-oriented health industries, and how that health industries is helping in the training and employment sector to save the lives of people. We have also seen a situation whereby from Ghana, where there is an entrepreneur who is working in the sector of men-oriented industries, in the metal sector, in the art sector, in the sculpting sector, and how this is contributing to also improving employment and development in her region. And then we have capped it by
Dans nos pays, surtout dans nos pays africains, on voit que la formation professionnelle technique est un peu délaissée, et plus encore pour les jeunes filles. Donc, je prends l'exemple de Djibouti. Djibouti est une économie pratiquement à 80% tertiaire, où aujourd'hui on favorise de plus en plus la formation professionnelle technique. Il y a eu un ministère qui a été créé dans ce sens-là, où on encourage cette formation professionnelle pour les jeunes, plus généralement, et comment encourager aussi les jeunes filles à être porteuses, si vous voulez, de création d'entreprises. Pourquoi ne pas sensibiliser la formation, encourager la formation des jeunes filles au niveau des études en formation professionnelle technique, les sensibiliser, et puis créer, c'est ce qu'on est en train de faire, créer des modules au sein des formations, des modules de création d'entreprises, les pépinières d'entreprises, etc. Et là, on a associé plusieurs partenaires. Et c'est ce que je pense qu'il faut faire en Afrique, c'est on a créé des départements de fonds de développement qu'on appelle, qui soutiennent, appuient la création d'entreprises, c'est-à-dire lorsque des jeunes sortent des universités, et en priorité des jeunes filles sortent des universités, comment les aider à créer leur propre entreprise pour pouvoir se lancer sur le marché. Et en plus de ces fonds de développement, c'est associer les secteurs bancaires et financiers, parce qu'on a vu que dans nos économies, le secteur financier, le secteur bancaire est très réticent à donner des emprunts à des jeunes qui démarrent dans la vie professionnelle. Donc c'est comment impliquer ces secteurs bancaires et financiers dans le pays par des garanties de l'État, à ce qu'on encourage ces jeunes garçons ou ces jeunes filles à pouvoir créer leurs propres entreprises et démarrer dans la vie professionnelle. Voilà ma remarque ou mon constat que je peux faire, et je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup à notre collègue de Djibouti pour cette intervention. Avons-nous d'autres interventions, s'il vous plaît? Do we have anybody would like to take the floor? Yes, the gentleman who has raised the plate, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Nicolas Reuge, West and Central Africa Regional Office of UNICEF and Regional Advisor for Education. Really, thank you for all these examples, really talking to us, speaking to us. And somebody said that TVET was really important for the future. I strongly believe in this. All the more that we have, once again, the highest number of out-of-school children, and all the more also that most of the employment opportunities in most of the African economies are on the informal market, so that TVET is really a leeway to, produce some productivity gain, so that the informal sector can progressively become formal. That's all I wanted to say on that.
Thank you very much for this intervention. Yes, madam, you have the floor at the back. I'll always please introduce yourself and then put your question forward. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Exilda from Zambia, Minister of Education. Firstly, I would like to appreciate the sharing that was done by the panelists. Then my comment is on TVET. I've actually seen a situation whereby, like in my country, we have very sound curriculum on TVET, but then I think the focus of that curriculum is mainly theoretical and not practical. So there's need to link learning to skill building. Because when learners take TVET courses, they don't link it to reality. They are learning to pass exams, and the schools are not well stocked with equipment that promote skill building. Yeah, so I would like to call for great investment in procuring procuring equipment that can support skill building rather than, learning it theoretically. That is my comment.
Thank you very much for that comment. Maybe I'd like to perhaps invite our panel members at this stage if they would like to react to some of the observations that have been made from the floor. Yes, please. Constance?
I think for me, the role of entrepreneurship cannot be overemphasized. Young people should be trained not to be employed by the government sector because there's very, very limited jobs. And so the training should be geared towards when you're done, you should be setting up your own business. A lot of people ask me, how did you start your business? I started with nothing. I started doing little items, and you plow back in and you just grow organically. And I always tell people that if I did it, then it's possible. Young people have this sense of entitlement as well that, it's owed to them. It's not owed to you. Once you're given all the necessary toolkits, you were saying, you have your brains, use it. We work in a country where our interest rates are almost 40%. So working with bank loans is almost non-existent. It's learning how to work with very little seed capital. I wish our government had probably a small revolving fund that, young people can have access to, with a notion that after 3 years, you have to pay back so that the next person would also continue to benefit. And then how do we have shared facilities? One of the biggest things for a lot of people in TVET-related entrepreneurship is tooling. How can we have a shared facility where students can have access to a warehouse where it has every sort of equipment that you would need at a small cost? So that every morning if I have an order, I can go into this warehouse for a small cost and produce, sell it, and then, come back and you keep plowing, and then give them business advisory support services as well. Because, when you enter into business, you realize that all the legalities and financials and all the business services that you require is also not taught. And that's another big thing. If you're given an order, how do you even read the legal scripts? Because you were saying that if you get an order and one thing is missing, then that means, so all these little things are things that can be done to encourage the rise of entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Constance. Maybe Mrs. Rajmanjusri would like to give some inputs.
Chair, we react on all the three points made by our free friend from Djibouti, UNICEF and Zambia. Entrepreneurial development, in fact, we in Mauritius as well, this is a real challenge. How do you get the youngsters to start their business? And I think SME development is extremely important for any economy of the world. But then when you talked about SME development, you start with the youngsters. How do that youngsters get the money, required money, seed capital to start the business? I think that there we need government support. It's very, very important to get a government support for that. And in Mauritius, if you look at in our budget, the government has really given a good share of the national budget to SME development. Again, not a perfect story, but we can, I'm sure, from Ministry of Education, you can get the details of how the government is doing for the SME development into the country. But one point, and that's where I always, when I do lectures or I do conferences, a message to the young people is that don't feel that if when government is helping you, you just sit down and things will happen for you. You should not be an assisted. You should also put your own effort. So entrepreneurial development, there is two ways to do that for it to happen. You need the right framework, and government need to be there in terms of setting the right framework. And in Mauritius, we used to have the Development Bank of Mauritius, which really helped, for instance, the manufacturing sector to grow at that time. And then it phased out, but it's starting back again. Well, it's not really phased out, but government is restructuring it. So the Development Bank of Mauritius was there to provide seed money, of course, on certain terms and conditions to the emerging entrepreneurs. That maybe can help you in what you are asking in terms of information. For a colleague from UNICEF, vocational training from informal to formal sector. From my experience in Africa, yes, the informal sector in Africa is very, very present. For instance, in the textile and apparel sector, where I know very much the African experience, the dumping issue that you have in several African countries is a major concern, and that's what is hampering the development of the textile and apparel sector into the country. That's, again, policy decision. And the government need to come up with firm policy decisions. For instance, I'm seeing that now with the pressure that US is putting on second-hand clothing in Africa is making certain government leaders to react. Now, this is happening. So why should you wait for the US government to come in and tell you, guys, you are going to lose your AGOA eligibility? Then you're reacting and saying, guys, yes, I need to address the problem of dumping. All right? So it's, again, informal sector it all depends on the policy decisions. So I really can't see vocational training linked to informal sector, but it's my reaction to you, to your point. And from our friend from Zambia, I think every country has got that problem of where the academia is only concentrating on academic thing and not taking into consideration the realities of the sector. Mauritius is no different. Poor IVTB, as our friend from MITD and the Ministry of Education, as private sector, we just throw stones to them. We say, guys, you're not taking into consideration the industry needs. But we also realize that we need to partner together to change our academic framework. But I think that the education system will remain the education system. They will provide the academic part of it. But that's where vocational training comes in. The vocational training will address the problem of mismatch between the needs of your economic sectors of the country and the academic qualification. That's where we did. MITD is here, but also government last year, 2 years back, launched the dual training program, where it's a bit more like the German vocational training, where the student is being trained according to a curriculum developed by the industry, delivered by a university. The students is 3 days at school and 3 days at the workplace. But that require also the private sector commitment, because that's where government in Mauritius was wise enough to say, put your money in. So by co-sharing, you are also committed to the program. At the end of it, when you're investing in a student, you are sponsoring his education for 3 years. You are giving a place for that student to be at work for 3 years. At the end of the 3-year terms and course, as an employer, I have no options. I will have to take that student, unless that student is really misbehaved. But otherwise, it's there. Chair, that's my...
Thank you very much, Lilauti. Would you like to... your comments, please.
I'll start in this note. Before God made man, he said, come, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion. Dominion connotes a whole lot of things. Dominion means thinking out of the box. Thinking out of the box doesn't necessarily require financial commitment, despite that in business you need finance, but finance is not, when it comes to scale of preference, finance is not the first thing. Thinking out of the box. Idea, as they said, rule the world. But I said, idea acted upon rules the world. A woman was created when God saw the need. He created man because he wanted. But when God saw the need, he made a woman. If we have that mindset, we will do exploit. So we mustn't wait for the government. We should learn to do our own part. Then if the government comes in, fine. If the government does not come, no problem. If I, from a country that gives little or no support to entrepreneurs coming up like us, so if I can do it, you can equally do it. So I want we women to wake up from our slumber. We can do it. We can do it. I believe we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I noticed that we are closing towards the time of allocation given to us. Do we have any last intervention from the floor? Any last intervention that we'd like? Yes, you have the honor, madam, of being the last to intervene in this session. Please, over to you.
Thank you. I'm Sarah from Plan International. I just want to discuss and especially get the panel's view on promoting decent work principles in the, in the TVET sector, and how is it really, how are we making our policies and also legal frameworks very much friendly to the girls and women that are actually involved in several sectors when they are out of the TVET sector. We can talk about the manufacturing, we can talk about the construction industries where there is a lot of gender-based violence, issues of equal pay, and even issues of child labor are also there. So what are some of the principles that we really need to ensure, and how can we also make the private sector somehow accountable to some of their roles in promoting this, and what are also some of the the appealing business cases that can be presented for the private sector so that they can come in and support those decent work principles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have to now conclude this panel session. And let me conclude by saying a simple statement. And this is a fact. We have seen an experience from Nigeria, another one from Ghana, another one from Mauritius, and we have heard the interventions from you, the flow from all across Africa and other sectors. It's a simple fact that girls know and can do a lot in terms of sectors that are traditionally men-oriented. That's a fact. We have seen cases in indigenous health. We have seen cases in metalwork in Ghana, and at national level in Mauritius, in manufacturing sector, in jewelry and other sectors that are there for manufacturing. Girls can do a lot in sectors. So to answer the question, what can nations do in order to encourage girls to get into men-oriented sectors? The answer is probably a simple one. Educate more girls. Give girls the opportunity to engage more in our countries and complete primary education and complete secondary education. Give girls the opportunity to go to schools. It's probably as simple as that in many of our countries. We have also heard some interventions that show us that another critical factor is getting good training systems which link the learning, the theoretical aspects of learning, to skill building. And these can be done by various sectors. They can be done in the formal sector of training through the technical and vocational training institutes. They can be done by distance education if a girl or a woman cannot have access to formal education, maybe through distance education. And what we are noticing, ladies and gentlemen, is that for those girls and women who are at home, now this becomes a very, very powerful learning tool. Today we had the experience of a YouTube video. This was streamed, and they can learn a lot without leaving homes if they are at home doing other things. There is a tremendous opportunity potential in Africa whereby the internet penetration in PCs is not that high, but the mobile penetration is extremely high. There is potential. I'm sorry, I wear the hat of the director of e-education of my country, but there is an immense potential that we have there to educate girls and educate skills for girls by video and audio technologies. We have seen also that one of the solutions to get girls more into men-dominated sectors is a buoyant private sector. There has to be an employment sector which is there, and that this employment sector must have a very close nexus with the learning systems. If there is a strong private sector with a strong nexus with the learning sector, then we see that more girls can get into sectors which are traditionally man-oriented. And finally, we have also seen that there is a need for more girls to get into men-dominated areas and technical areas of education and in science and technology training, that there has to be good support systems to enable these young women entrepreneurs that I have on my left and on my right, like them, to engage into more job creation opportunities, and for them to be financed to be able to do that, and for them to be able to make economies grow, so that one day, ladies and gentlemen, this booklet is not just Mauritius a sustainable investment, but becomes Africa a sustainable investment. I wish, ladies and gentlemen, to invite you to give a very big round of applause to our panel members for their experience and sharing. And I wish also to thank you first for being given the opportunity to do the moderating, but also a big round of applause for yourselves who have been able to give excellent questions and inputs. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, mesdames et messieurs, et je vous souhaite bon appétit. Thank you.
Également à tous les participants. Alors, nous venons de mettre fin à une session qui était très intéressante. Je suppose que tout le monde est d'accord avec moi. Nous allons maintenant passer au déjeuner, au même endroit qu'hier, et on reviendra vraiment à 14h30 pour avoir une autre session un peu plus différente de celle qu'on a eue d'hier et celle du matin, et qui va porter sur l'environnement juridique et institutionnel sur l'éducation, en particulier sur l'éducation des filles. C'est une session normalement qui était prévue de 14h30 à 17h. Je pense que maintenant elle sera réduite jusqu'à normalement au plus tard à 16h on devrait finir cette session. Donc 14h30 au plus tard 16h on devrait avoir fini cette session. On a une consultante qui est là et qui va nous présenter en fait le travail qui a été fait sur tout ce qui est environnement juridique et institutionnel, sur la mise en œuvre, sur tout ce qui est législation existante et également quelle est la hiérarchie au niveau, la hiérarchie juridique qui existe. Donc ça nous permettra de faire un peu de droit et puis d'apprendre un peu plus sur comment nos différentes politiques sont adoptées, sont ratifiées, sont mises en œuvre. Donc à tout à l'heure. Merci.